Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening depending on where you are. Welcome back to another episode of Round Square Gaming, and my name is Doidle. Today we are checking out Banished, which is a pretty interesting game, something that I've been following for several years during its development, purely because this whole game was designed by just one guy. He did the whole thing. This game I have had, well, it's been out for a few years already, and I did used to play it quite a lot, but I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this game. But anyway, I just wanted to go back to it and see how it is nowadays, see if I've learned anything in my old age wisdom. So let's make a new town. I will skip ahead while I figure out what the hell to do here. Tit Town. Okay, so now that we've gone through the arduous process of actually choosing a name for our civilization, our little town, you can also change these different little modifiers here for the what type of map you want to work on. Now, my big problem with how I used to play this game is actually in this tab here, the Disasters tab. I understand it's important to play the game and experience it how it was intended, but oh my god, does having disasters on make this so freaking difficult. So, for the purposes of this, I'm just going to not bother with it, because everyone just dies for no particular reason. All sorts of workplace accidents. But anyway, let's see the new town of Hunterfield. Okay, so here we are. Hunting thing, town, whatever. So, here we have our little happy pioneers. Everyone is homeless. Oh, I quite like this map, actually. Yeah, let's stick with this one. I thought I'd have to reload this like 7 or 8 times. Right, so, let's just get this set up quickly. We want an overhead map. We want, no, not an event log. We want town information, we'll stick that up there, and jobs. Right, we're officially set up. So, a little bit of base information about this game before we begin. You are just a random team of poor little people who have given up their entire livelihoods to start afresh somewhere, completely alone in the wilderness. Anywho, for the time being, we're actually in a nice little clearing, so yeah, it's probably most important that we get these people some shelter, because that's already screaming at us. So what we can do is we can start laying down some houses, but me being the loser that I am when it comes to town building, I have to make sure that this has to look right. So essentially there are a variety of different factors that will determine just how well you do in terms of if you're going to make it through the next winter, because it is the winter months that will kill you, basically. It is your job to make sure that you do not run out of food, or clothing, or just lose all knowledge that you had before, to the point that you cannot look after yourselves any longer. So I don't know, it's a pretty interesting game. This is this game sort of diverges away from traditional city building sims, which is pretty nice to see, I have to say. But essentially, as I was saying a few minutes ago on the title screen, it is absolutely awful when it comes to the disasters in the game. This game is relentless. It's not forgiving in the slightest. And basically, if you have these disasters on, then what will happen is, naturally, there are things that will kill people. They might die of exposure. If they don't have any logs to burn, any firewood in the winter, they will starve to death if there is no food. But with disasters on, you would then have the added problems of things like failed crops, failed harvests, disease amongst livestock, and workplace accidents, which will just randomly kill people. And I've racked up a very large amount of hours playing this game in the past, and as I said before, I always had a big problem with this game because you were essentially just waiting all the time. That's all you did. You just waited and sort of prayed that by the next harvest you would have a better chance of surviving. And so because of that, I've always somewhat despised this game. So essentially, in Banished, you have, as I was saying, all manner of different resources and industries that you need to have in a balance, basically, to make sure that your people don't starve or freeze, or just to make sure their little hearts keep on beating, basically. And these are all sort of listed up here. You know, it's gonna, you've got your basic things like food and shelter and things like that, and then it breaks itself down into things like luxury items or medicines, tools and clothing that actually keep them protected for longer. And yes, it's quite nice to see something a little bit different. So essentially, because this game runs on an annual calendar, every moment counts. And everything you do will have some effect on... Everything you do will have some effect on the resources that are supplied to your town. The resources that are imperative to survival. And basically, you have all these different jobs, and you have to essentially micromanage people to make sure that they are not going to waste, basically. Make sure that all the things that need to be prioritised are being prioritised, which is, fair enough. So there are all manner of different professions that your settlers can do, and each of them is just as imperative as the last to make sure that your settlement survives. So it's pretty interesting to see that it's more than basically just saying, build a manufacturing unit, like build a forester's lodge, and it just automatically starts producing for you. No, you have to make sure that you have people available to man that. So I suppose in some regards it's a bit like, what was it called? Like Stronghold, where it all depends on how many people you have available. While we don't have much going on at the moment, let's just see if we can clear some of the terrain of its natural resources. So there's two different types of resource gathering in this game. You have either the resources which are immediately available, shall we say, on the surface, which anybody can just come along and collect if you tell them to do so. So we've got, rocky outcrops over here, and I'm sure there's some iron deposits somewhere nearby, like right here, for example. So we can sort of sweep the land of that. But if we want to have a more sustainable... Are they walking in the water? Yes, they are. Well, can't knock this. It was made by one dude. Yes, but if you want to have a more stable income of these resources, then you have to build things such as mines and things like that. Oh, I might actually have to clear some trees, which I didn't really want to do, because I like them from an aesthetic perspective. But we are not doing very well. Already, it's late summer, we do not have much oh my goodness, I've spent way too much time talking, and we don't really have any food. So everything is really a race against the clock. It's autumn, we have 22 food. Hunter's Field might be a failed colony before it's even begun. Right, come on, please. Oh, this is not going to end well. It's autumn, we don't have any wood. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. But it's interesting because you do get a sort of live depiction of all the different resources around, so look at all these yummy little roots and shrubs and plants and vegetables that my people can eat. Right, okay, we need to start producing some logs immediately. So, this guy here in the Forester's Lodge, he's responsible for the cutting down and the replanting of trees, so you don't have to worry too much about deforestation, which is kind of nice. But look, it is early winter, it's gone down to -6 degrees already. It's fucking freezing, basically. My poor little people don't have any, they don't have any fuel to burn in their houses, but something's burning. Maybe they fed the childrens to the fire. Who knows? It's pretty complex as a game because, you know, we have access to wood, for example, now, but we do not have access to fuel. We need to convert that that wood rather, into a usable fuel. So we are going to need a woodcutter. And I'll tell you what, I'm just going to stick him pretty close by to the this stockpile. So then they don't have to go too far to get the wood they need to make the firewood, which will keep my people safe. Luckily, we're not freezing to death just yet because we have some clothes stored, but it is a race against time because those clothes are eventually going to wear out. So for every type of industry that you have in your settlement, you need to assign a certain number of people to it. Or, well, you can have a minimum of one person working on it, but this will obviously greatly reduce its productivity. Okay, look, right there. Yep, we're freezing to death. That's what those little snowflakes mean. Luckily, the temperature has returned back to freezing point. Let's see. Yeah, I know the reserve of firewood is low. You do not need to tell me that. Come on, it's 1 degree. You shouldn't be... Don't be complaining, guys. But yes, I think this game is pretty interesting because everything has very much a cause and effect, and the things that you choose to do now will have an effect on how the game will play later on. So say, for example, I have 13 adults, 13 people who can work, and 7 children who cannot work yet. But if I send them to work eventually, if they grow up without an education, they're going to be far less good at their jobs, and therefore the productivity of whatever they choose to do is going to be much lower. So it's pretty imperative that you always think of the future, basically, because, you know, it takes several years, obviously, for these little kiddywinks to grow up and make themselves useful members of the community. So I should realistically probably start investing in a schoolhouse relatively soon. In fact, we may as well just put one down now. Let's see, we will put it... Let's put it right... We'll put it right here. Right here. Okay, I like that. What's that? Oh! Our stockpile is, we've reached capacity. That ain't good. But, luckily, it just means that we just need to assign another place to store our goods. When it comes to the resources in your settlement, there are 2 types of storage. You have the storage stockpile, which will be for actual resources, so things like building materials, namely, and then you will have the storage barn, and this is where you have essentially goods. So this is where you'll keep all of your food, it's where you'll keep things like tools, we've got clothes in there as well, it's where we'll keep things like, I don't know, alcohol later on, general goods that are produced by industries. So let's just build another stockpile there for the time being. Oh look, and you can even see the new trees are already growing from the Forester's Lodge, which is quite nice. To be fair, that's actually, yeah, that's not a bad place to have the Forester's Lodge. I mean, we will expand into there later on, but I'll tell you what, let's clear the land of some of these resources so that more trees can grow. I want to make this as efficient as I can. Oh, this isn't good. Let's disable production on firewood for the time being, so that we can get some more people working on the schoolhouse. Because right now all of the logs that would be used for building material is just going straight to there, so let's just not bother for the time being. Okay, build, build, build. Let's drop some serious education on these mothers. Okay, we have a schoolhouse. But again, nobody works there, so we have to assign some poor schmuck to educate the childrens. But now we have that, we can get the woodcutter working again, producing firewood, because it's going to start dropping soon, that temperature. It's going to get really chilly really quickly. So you can already see some people have successfully copulated and fulfilled their genetic duty to reproduce. So, we have 5 children already for the future. For the time being, let's just have a nice... Let's just work on building some nice new houses. But one thing which is quite nice is that you can choose the appearance of the houses. I think that's just a nice little touch. I quite like that. I think that's pretty dandy. So I think what we will do in preparation for the springtime, we will start growing crops, which are the backbone of a stable food income. So there's all different types of food that you can get in the game, and all of them require different types of... they're all individual. What I mean by that is that they will work on different germination periods. Is that the right phrase? Germination periods? I don't know. But they will have their own harvest cycles, basically. But you can build things like crops, which are sort of an annual thing. You can build orchards, which are stable, but they take several years to grow and mature in the first place. You can have pastures for different types of animals, which will, depending on what type of animals you get, they will grow at different rates. They will produce different resources. Like chickens will do meat and eggs, for example. Cattle will also provide you with leather for clothing. So it's all pretty good. Fishing dock if you're near the coast. So we've got a lot of waterfront near us, so I might invest in some of those. But a very good start game thing is the Gatherer's Hut. And this basically gives you an incredibly varied diet. They will pick so many things, but only from mature woodland, which is why I've got it down here, and our wood production is up here instead. But anyway, for the time being, let's not do anything fancy. Let's just make a nice little farm. There we go. So, we have a farm. We can now choose what type of crops we wish to build. Plant, even. And as the game goes on, you can trade with salesmen to get different types of food, different seeds, basically. But for the time being, we only have access to peppers. So we can grow some mother flippin' peppers up in his house. And then as soon as it gets to spring, yep, there we go. Oh no, she's just going to have a look at the dirt. I was going to say, hopefully, please start. Is she working on it? Yeah, there we go. She's beginning to tend to the field. What are we running out of? Logs. What a surprise. Goodness me. To be fair though, I mean, you know, it's been 3 years and just look at the sheer amount of additional trees there are now. Obviously they need several years to mature. So I need to make sure that I don't exhaust the forest, but yeah, we're doing pretty good, all things considered. Okay, I think I'm also going to stick down a hunting lodge, because I've seen a lot of deer running around near our town, and they will get me hides, which will basically, I can use those to make clothing to survive the winter and not have to burn so much fuel. So it all benefits each other. But now I can't seem to find any more deer. They've all gone. Great, they knew I was planning this and they all left. Thank you, ecosystem. Okay, we're actually doing alright for the time being. And look, so they're building our little crops. And basically, in the event of, like, onset famine, like maybe we're experiencing now, I can essentially harvest this already, even though it's not quite the harvest yet, but I'm only going to get 69% yield from the total potential that it can offer me. So it's not a very good idea. I'm going to see if I can cling on. Oh dear, this isn't very good. I knew I spoke too soon. I thought this was going too well, and it certainly was. So I figured what I'm going to do, I'm going to just continue playing this game, and I'm going to end the episode when we're not on the verge of death, when we're not on the brink. As soon as they can survive for 5 minutes without my constant micromanagement, then I'll leave them be. But for the time being, that's right, you gather that food. You gather that food. We're starving here. Don't go home. Where are you bloody going? Oh. Oh, I'm really not liking this. This isn't going very well. Let's increase our farmers to 3 so that we can get that field cleared. Because essentially, if I leave those crops, they're eventually going to begin to degrade anyway. So if you only have 1 farmer working on this, those crops are probably all going to die before I even can get to them all. Which kind of sucks. It sucks a lot, in fact. Oh dear. So yeah, the harvest is only good while it's the harvest. I may have shot myself in the foot though, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to produce enough food before the next harvest. You know, it's really nice. This game is a lot more enjoyable to play when people aren't just dying every 2 freaking seconds. You know, Farmer Bill fell over. He fell onto a pickaxe and gouged his eyes out. And Wilhelm, the lumberjack, got a splinter that infected him. He got gangrene and died. Because, yeah, everyone would just die, and you might have, like, 3 or 4 deaths a year just completely from work-related injuries. Literally nothing you can do to prevent it, nothing you can do to stop it, and you've just lost that person. So you then got to wait for someone else to grow up from being a little babu, an icky baby, and enter the workforce, which, ugh, oh gosh, it was a vicious cycle, seriously. But essentially, when this game is kind of running well and smoothly, it's pretty zen. I quite like it. I think essentially, as soon as we are... Oh wait, no, we have got all the resources we need there. I'm going to increase the capacity for our fuel production. So now we can produce up to 300 units of firewood, which is good because we have an expanding population. Still, everyone seems to be quite happy, even though we're very quickly running out of tools, and there are no stored clothes left. But, you know, we'll survive. We've survived 4 years now. 4 years. We can do another one. And someone else has just entered the workforce. So, that's pretty good. I'm going to get you to focus on more food, please. I know the reserve of food is low, you don't have to tell me that. In fact, there's no food at all. Bring those peppers. Save the day. So yeah, we've got onions, we've got berries, we've got peppers now, all sorts of things. And a vast majority of that does come from the Gatherer's Hut, so it's quite nice. They have a pretty stable, a nice variety in their diet. I quite like that. Okay, so we're finally getting more food than we're consuming, so that's pretty good. Pretty good indeed. Quite happy with that. The herbalist, we've got medicine, so now average health has gone up to 3.5 hearts. Looking pretty good. Quite enjoying this. Gatherer's Hut, that's good, that's good, that's good. And we've got 3 more people available to work for us. So these are all people who have been educated by the schoolhouse, which means that they're going to be perfectly efficient at their jobs. Whereas if I had them grow up without having an education, they'd suck, and their productivity would immediately be like half or something ridiculous like that. So, what shall we do for them? I think for the time being, we should have a tailor, because we do not have much access to clothes. And when I say not much access, I mean no access whatsoever. Right, I just want this to line up, because that's going to be the main road in and out of town. Okay. Cool, cool. And speaking of roads, let's also begin to invest in some. So I'm just going to make a nice big boulevard basically going down the centre of the town. Fab. I love it. Okay. It's early spring. We actually have a good surplus of food for the time being. Check that out. Oh my gosh, we're nearly out of tools. Okay, right. So as well as the tailor, if basically tools are required in order for people to do their jobs efficiently, much like education, if people's tools break, then they can barely do their job, and production will just slow to virtually a complete halt. And I don't want that to happen, so we're gonna have the blacksmith. He's gonna make some tools for us, but I don't know where I want to stick it for the time being. Fudge it, we'll just do it. Yeah, we'll do it up here, why not? We can say, oh, this is the blacksmith's house. He lives with his wife, Mrs. Blacksmith. Okay, so you can see we've run out of tools completely now, which means that people don't have access to the basic tools required to do their jobs efficiently. It's going to take these guys a long time to finish this off. Well, not really, but I mean, compared to how it would have been, it's a lot slower. So we're going to have a tailor, and then these guys, please, 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 I need you to work on this stuff. Build me this blacksmith. I always love in city building sims when you see the under construction parts of a building, and they actually go to the trouble of making it, you know, they make the footprint of it, you can see the windows, you can see like the foundations. I don't know, I always just think that's a really nice touch, because now, that's, in terms of like a geometric model, that's just going to be a rectangle and a couple of like extruding pieces for the windows and the doors, you know, I don't know, just a really nice touch. And of course, it's so important to remember this was all done by just one person. One person made this entire game. I mean, I don't know. If that's not a labour of love, I don't know what is. I mean, I studied games design at university, and I know the sheer amount of hard work, blood, sweat and tears that goes into making simple things. So to make a fully functioning thing, and I don't know if this is running on a particular type of engine, or maybe even if it's something that he's made himself, but even if it isn't, this is like, I don't know, it's a huge achievement. It is a huge achievement, because he's come up, this guy, Mr. can't remember how to pronounce his name, and he's made a game which fully functions. You know, it's like, okay, this is not an amazing game, obviously it's not AAA, but it's, this is a fully functioning game. It doesn't, as far as I'm aware, I've not really ever encountered any glitches. Yeah, I don't know, I just think it's cool, it's so cool. I've got so much appreciation for people who do this, because it truly is a labour of love. I just think that's pretty rad. That's my 2 cents on the matter. Okay, and so we have some tools again now. People can do their jobs efficiently. We will have some clothes. Unfortunately, we're not having much luck with the hunting cabin, basically. But, later on, we're going to build a trading post. I reckon we're going to build it right here if it will allow me. And we're going to get some cattle. Oh yes, it's going to be pretty great. Great. And with cattle we can make, or even if we have like sheepies, and we can make some jumpers. Make some nice jumpy jumps to help in the winter. Love it. Cool. Well, we have medicine, we have finally a stable supply of food, and an income of tools. The only thing we don't have really going at the moment is clothes, but I think this is a pretty good place to leave it for this first episode. In the next one we're just going to be exploring more. Now that we're stable we can begin, I don't know, maybe making things look a bit prettier. We can begin looking into things like luxuries, things like some alcohol. We'll build them a nice pub to chill out in. That'll be pretty great. And see about expanding our town to be one heck of a civilization. So thank you everybody so much for checking this video out. I really enjoyed coming back to this game after hating it for so many years. And yeah, we will see you in the next one when we're going to have a bit more fun. Have a great day, everyone.